Cheers!
In my experience, I've noticed that tanking is usually the worst role in a video game and they almost never get the respect they deserve. And unfortunately, Xenoblade 3 is no exception. They're not as bad as they were in Xenoblade 2, but still,
Not good enough!
right now the only good tanks I can think of are Hendrik from Dragon Quest XI, Olberic and Hikari from Octopath Traveler, oh and look, Rhino Danban from Xenoblade Chronicles. But one other thing these ones have in common is that they're not just good at taking hits, but also good at dealing the hits. Now don't get me wrong, it's obviously fun dealing big damage, but that's no excuse to make tanks bad or irrelevant. I'm not a game developer, and not even the first to try and fix Shulk, but I've done a lot of research into this topic, and trust me, you'll realize so many things are wrong with defenders and especially with Shulk. That's why I'm going to touch into every aspect of him, and I'm not saying that absolutely everything here should happen because it never will, but I will point out the changes that should have been made from the start, because I don't see the problem with being broken in single player games, and besides, it's fine being overpowered.
Right! Let's do this!
Shulk has one of the worst skill sets in the entire game. Seriously, the only contenders for worst would be Lost Vanguard, Young Smith, and maybe an opponent champion in some situations. It feels like they didn't even bother thinking on what his skill set should be. The goal here is to have a skill that helps in drawing aggro, a skill that helps with survival, a skill that helps the team, and something else that actually works and is appropriate in theming. Okay, we need to address the Coronid in the room.
This might not be so good.
This is most definitely one of the worst skills in the game. Deal 300% of attacking damage when you evade an attack. This is what we call a spike. For one, attack isn't even what you're supposed to do as a tank, but it also can't be enhanced, and buffs or fields don't affect it, so it will only ever deal a maximum of 4065 damage. Heavy Rush, on the other hand, is one of the weakest starts in the game and can easily deal more damage than this. Now there's clearly something I don't know about how the art's damage is calculated, but this spike is fixed damage that will never do anything useful.
Dear God.
There's more.
No.
Let's take a look at the Lost Vanguard skill, Come and Get Me. You can see that this one explicitly states that it draws aggro. It's always a fixed amount, and it isn't based on the damage dealt by it as far as I can tell. But also when comparing with Heavy Guard, Aggravator, you can see that 30 is higher than 10, and 10 is higher than nothing! Trust me, I wish it was as broken as this, but it just isn't. If I were to pick a skill or art that is the equivalent to Splash in Pokemon, I would pick this one. Replace with Mio Suroboro's skill, Biting Back. Evading deals 200% of attacking damage and boosts damage dealt by 20% up to a maximum of 300%. You can either keep or replace the 300% of spike damage, it doesn't make a difference. Just this change would make 2 worlds of difference. And lastly, name change. I propose Warrior's Ambition, which is a callback to Danban. Just like Shulk said,
It's completely useless.
this is what I like to call a ring skill. They are defender exclusive and only affect allies when they are inside, but there's a few problems with that. They're a little bit too small and don't get bigger even if you upgrade them, unlike fields. During a fight, you and your party members move around a lot, whether you like it or not. And lastly, characters in this game are semi-tangible or semi-faceable. Yes, it is a term, I just invented it, but it boils down to this. Something unfaceable is an object that you can't go through, like walls or enemies in Xenoblade 3. Something faceable then is something that you can go through, like enemies in Xenoblade X. So when I say something is semi-faceable, I mean that when you get close to your party members, you end up pushing them away, which is undoubtedly the worst case scenario. If they were faceable, you could just sit inside of them. If they were unfaceable, you could hug really close to them. But no, because defenders can't have nice things. I think this is a good concept but bad execution, So the only way to make this work is to increase the size.
Ain't over yet!
We have a spike again.
There's no end to them!
Out of all the long exile skills that Shulk could have gotten, it had to be the worst. Replaced with Zephyr's I'll Defend You, 16% chance to prevent attacks on allies within a fixed radius. Or another option could be Noponic Champion skill, Tit for Tat. Whenever an ally in a fixed radius is attacked, boost recharge of one art at random by 20%. But I would include recharge for talent art. This would surpass a problem all defenders have, that you'll see later on, and besides, both of these feel like they make sense thematically, so choose the one you like. And lastly, I propose the name Fight the Future, which is a callback to one of Shulk's skills from Xenoblade 1.
It's not over yet!
This is a bad skill disguised as a good skill. Each short read grants a measly 50% increase in damage as long as Rex is dead. No one wants to fight more than one enemy at a time.
Man, what a bunch of jokers!
So there's a few options here. Replace with Mio Suroboro's skill, Clear Sight, boosts evasion rate by 30% when attacked by a targeted enemy, but I also like the semi-unique effect I made up adapted from this same skill. Boosts evasion rate the more enemies target you, 5% per enemy up to a maximum of 30%. This encourages fighting many enemies at once like in enemy territories, or it could also be one of the Defender Lucky 7 skills. Boosts evasion by 2% when you take damage up to a maximum of 50%. Because the way this works reminds me of Rhine, I propose the name Against the Odds, which is a callback to one of Rhine's skills from Xenoblade 1, and it's a Dunban quote at the same time.
We are the greatest! It's cause we all make such a great team, Ryan! Okay, just one more left!
I can't see a way to make this work properly. This is supposed to be Shulk's way of evading attacks. It has a super low chance and you can't control when it happens, unlike other defenders that either have an art or can easily increase their block rate. I have seen one instance where I managed to land an auto attack against a Grebel while it was invulnerable. Well then, whoop-de-freaking do, you managed to dodge a single hit but still got damaged by the rest of the attack. Good going there, Shulk. But I think the best option is when you transfer Shulk to base game. This is where it gets tricky. This was the only good skill before this and was trapped behind not being able to use it in future redeemed and can control Shulk in base game. I think the problem here are unity combos, in that they're supposed to be a way to buff your team with unique effects, inflict the enemy with Smash, Burst or Blowdown, and for some reason give the unity combo bear the Awakening buff. Because of this, they decided that Shulk couldn't have a real access to what is supposed to be his main mechanic. Realistically, you would not use the same unity combo twice in the same fight, because the effects are permanent for the rest of the fight and don't stack multiple times. But because of this detail in that it's the only way to get Awakening, it means that if you're not constantly using Shulk for the unity combo, he will not be on the same level as other characters. I propose to make unity combos not interact with Awakening, give Shulk this skill and just call it Mechanical Rhythm because the name works on so many levels.
We've got a good rhythm going!
Before we move on, I have a question. Is there favoritism in Xenoblade 3?
What?
Preposterous. How could that be the case? The answer? Well... I made a little experiment. We are going to compare Keves and Agnus arts by how fast they can get their talent art. And this is perfect because we have base game with Noah and future redeem with Matthew. They both are attackers from different nations, both of their talent arts need 3 to recharge, and both have ponytails, this is super important. The only difference they have is that Noah has 2 positional arts and Matthew has 1. This should theoretically mean that Matthew is going to take slightly longer to use his talent art, right? At least to me, it's very obvious that Matthew would be slower than Noah.
Keep your heads or lose them! Yeah! Now you're for it! Extra! Crusher! Rising blow! Air blast! Nothing's going. Arrow burst! Hey! I'm here! Finally! An enemy worth my time! Yoo-hoo! That's a big help. Revolt uppercut! There goes the enemy. Ow, my face! I'm feeling full of beans.
There goes the enemy.
Gigantic beat!
I could very consistently get 18 seconds with Noah, meanwhile Matthew had a bigger range of time, because Rothbard has apparently insanely high block rate, and could also inflict knockback sometimes. But even then, Matthew's lowest time was 14, and his most common time was around 16 or 17, which is still lower than Noah's best time. And this doesn't take into account that later on you can unlock art cancelling to speed up the Agnus process. But why do this then? Keves cooldowns take too long, especially compared with Agnus and their special way of recharging. I think they were going for the slow but powerful approach, which roughly translates to it freaking sucks. Honestly, I could make an entire video on this topic, but for now I propose 7 seconds as the shortest cooldown. I think if there was a PvP mode where there are two sides, Keves and Agnus, and you can only use classes or arts from their respective nation, Agnus would undoubtedly win like 95% of the time. And I hear you say, but wait, aren't Shulk's art actually pretty good? First of all, funny voice, don't do it again. Second, I mean they're alright, but not particularly good. I would change a few effects around on top of reducing cooldown, because even Monado Armor, the longest cooldown for his Agnus art, recharges faster than Heavy Rush, which has the shortest Keves cooldown. Besides, Shulk can only rely on damage to draw aggro, which is a clear bad design. It only happens if Rex doesn't have any of his skills or is dead. What good is attack that can't draw aggro and let teammates die, or attack that is dead? Because of the new skill set, we need to give any art the effect of reducing Shulk's HP by 10% and evasion.
Monado armor!
I'd say keep this the same, but instead of a field effect, give it in AoE like Sword Mirage. Because Armor Veil is the worst field effect, but not the worst buff. Look at it this way, if only one character is standing inside the field that can withstand 100 damage, and said character takes 100 damage or less, then its actual HP won't decrease. But if there are two characters inside the same field, and both take 100 damage at the same time by an AoE, the field will disappear and both characters will take 50 damage. As an AoE buff, everyone in range gets their own armor veil that scales with their own HP instead of the caster, and it's a bit more reminiscent of how it worked originally.
Monado Rage!
Make it AoE and add that it reduces Shulk's HP by 10% without evading. To me this feels like it makes sense thematically and reminds me of how Ryan draws aggro,
Rage!
and it makes sense with the new skills.
Monado Breaker!
Some people say this looks like Demon Slayer, but not really. I'd say keep AoE and fix the effect. Instead of when enemies are targeting only you, change to enemy targeting any defender. This is the art I would imagine being an evasion art, because it kind of feels like it could be a mix between Monado's speed and Purge. Or maybe it could work differently depending on which art it's fused with.
Slit Edge!
First off, get rid of AoE, and either bleed or physical defense don't make sense. But I think this could be an option for evading, because in the fight against God Cleaver Shulk, Slit Edge is an evasion art. Honestly, bleed makes so little difference that it could have both effects. The next two arts depend on what you like.
Stream Edge!
Keep Break and add AoE. Another effect I like is from Triton's Magnificent Feast. Other arts recover 30% of recharge when art hits. It also makes sense thematically because in the past it did something similar.
Hiramatsu!
100% more aggro always, and 100% more damage when awakened. This is not as rewarding as they think. Only after becoming awakened do you get to be on equal ground as other defenders to draw aggro. Another option I could see is to replace this with Air Slash and change a few things around, like for example Air Slash inflicting break and maybe slow recharge, and Stream Edge recharge other arts and or draw more aggro. In the end he needs at least one art that draws more aggro. First of all, I have a question. Do you have any idea how defenders get their talent art? Think about it. We already know how attackers get them. Healers is even more straightforward, only needing to put a field effect anywhere. So, have your answer? If you said, when a defender draws attention to itself, then no, that's f***ing wrong. What does it even mean? If you said, enemy needs to target any defender for 8 uninterrupted seconds just for 1 recharge, then you're unfortunately correct.
Monado Buster!
Honestly, the talent art itself is good. What needs to change is the way to get awakened and how defenders get their talent art. For example, all other roles get it by using an art, so I think all defenders should have an art that specifically recharges the talent art. Another option could be when allies get attacked inside of your ring skill.
Can someone else handle this one?
Let's take a look at Soul Hacker's different souls. Power Soul specifically states that it has low dexterity. Then why does it have the same as the Balance and Dodge Soul? The Balance Soul isn't particularly balanced either, but just comparing the stats you can see that Tough Soul has lower dexterity than Power, and is objectively the worst in general. And this is also reflected in the other classes. Pretty much all healers and all attackers have higher dexterity than all defenders. The worst part is that half of the arts of all healers don't require dexterity. And you would actually think that an attacker would have lower dexterity to make their attacks more impactful and important. In the end, defenders are left with low attack, meaning that you need to give special attention to it if you want to draw aggro, low dexterity, so that their attacks always miss, meaning that you're also not gaining aggro, and then you still have to make them actually survive. It feels like they just hate tanks and didn't want them to actually be good or useful. Add on top of this that defenders are the least populated role in the game with only 5 in base game, plus 1 in DLC, and in future redeemed copies of 2 of base game defenders with some changes. Put all this together and Shulk has the lowest average defenses of all defenders, the lowest block rate of any defender, the lowest crit rate of any agility defender, almost the lowest dexterity in the entire game, and just has the highest attack of any defender. But because he has no reliable way of increasing aggro, he is just an unglorified attacker, and by that logic, he has the lowest attack of all attackers. I am actually surprised Shulk isn't considered the worst character in the game. For starters, I would increase crit rate from 16 to 25%. Because I gave him good skills, I don't think most of his stats have to change now, aside from maybe agility and dexterity. But I still wanted to share with you why defenders are so garbage. I also think they could add another functionality to healing power, because no one else besides healers need or use it. Maybe it could influence the power of buffs and debuffs. Let me ask you a question. Who do you think has the highest dexterity in Future Redeemed? Is it Shulk, who is fast and can have visions of the future? Is it A, who can also have visions and has both of her arms? Is it Matthew, a fast martial artist? Is it Nicole, who has extendable arms? Or is it the dude with one eye? If you guessed the white demo man, then you're unfortunately correct. How? He has half of the organs required to have good dexterity! Now, I don't like nerfing characters, but it makes no sense that Rex has the highest dexterity when missing an eye. In general, he already has the highest stats, ungodly high crit rate, highest attack and dexterity including base game, 3rd highest agility, 3rd highest HP, and doesn't use healing power, so it doesn't matter. Shulk doesn't even have the highest base agility. In all honesty, Shulk isn't the only one to have bad extra skills, but he certainly got the worst treatment. Especially considering that right beside him there is a guy who got everything. These are effects that are either taken from accessories or skills from the base game. I would increase to maximum in Future Redeem for everyone, because it's more fun that way, and you guessed it, Shulk has all rank 1 values, and I'm not even kidding. I'm also going to change a few things to make them more useful. Increase from 30 to 60%. If I think I understand how it works, can keep this as is, it's pretty good. Keep the same. Really? 5%? Here, let me change the name. Minimum should be 10%, but because agility is so unreliable, it could go to 15%. I think a tank shouldn't have this. To me, it's more fitting of a healer. I would personally replace this with Smithy Gloves accessory, boosts accuracy each time an enemy evades an attack up to maximum of 50%. Shulk tends to miss too many attacks or get blocked in many scenarios. What even is a ranged attack in this game? Could be Induction Bangle accessory, boost damage dealt when attacking from the front, or it could be Dragon Fang Necklace accessory, boost damage dealt when attacking enemies targeting you, or a defender in general, like I said with Monolith Urge. And the last option I like is Fraternal Batch effect, boost recharge speed by 50% when non-defenders are targeted. Why does no one else have this aside from Nicol and Glimmer? Would it kill you to give this to every character? Who in their right mind looks at the Affinity Tree and says, "Ah yes, 39 out of 39, I love that number so much"? Unfortunately, 39 isn't a prime number to be even weirder, but I think it's pretty dumb that no one else has this to complete a 40 out of 40. First of all, thank you so much for watching. If you like this, let me know. This is the first public video I've ever made, and if it gets enough attention, I'd be down to tackle other topics, and I already have a lot of ideas. You just can't imagine my reaction when I saw his new design and him being an agility tank, and then my disappointment when I saw his skills. It could have been perfect, but they really messed up combat wise. I would really like to see a mod that even just changes his spike damage to any other skill, with such an easy option available in game. It feels like they didn't even put effort into Shulk skills. And just seeing how in comparison to most other classes, tanks always get the short end of the stick, like low stats, or just things that don't complement their playstyle. I aspire to end tank hate in the world.
Spectacular!